thousands gather at Freedom Plaza in the district for Working People's Day, a fight for pay, health care, better schooling, and much more.
And it's been 2 weeks since the February 14th massacre at a high school in Parkland, Florida, and the president wants to arm teachers. What do they have to say? District Wire News starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Crystal Campos.
And I'm Joseph Riley.
Parkland, Florida students are returning to school after the deadly shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School 2 weeks ago. Students and staff are picking up their belongings that were thrown down during the panic. Students remembered the 17 lives lost in a makeshift memorial in front of the school. Nicholas Cruz, the 19-year-old suspect charged with the murder, has not yet entered a plea.
President Trump sat down on live television with parents and students that were directly affected by the recent mass shootings in the country. He spoke with these families on policy matters about guns. The crowd he spoke with had different views. Many wanted to get stricter gun laws. Trump also mentioned possibly reopening some mental institutions that closed in the 70s. He also talked about arming school officials. The forum allowed for parents of past and present victims to confront the leaders they feel have always failed them.
A D.C. gun control rally is looking for a new location after the National Park Services denied their application. The March for Our Lives is a response to the mass shooting that occurred in Parkland, Florida earlier this month. The march was originally scheduled to take place on March 24th at the National Mall. However, the NPS says another group already submitted an application for the same date. Organizers still plan to hold the march on the 24th. They are focusing on Pennsylvania Avenue and West Potomac Park for a new location.
It's been almost 2 weeks since the Florida shooting, and President Trump has introduced the idea of teachers carrying firearms. On Thursday, he supported the NRA's position to train teachers to defend themselves and their students against mass shootings. District Wire News' Shanice Archer reports.
American University, a quiet campus here in D.C., is filled with people disagreeing about arming teachers at school. Communication Director Patricia Afferheide says we don't need teachers to have accidents with guns or use them in altercations.
What kind of society do we live in where you cannot congregate in any groups at all without having everyone be armed?
She says we don't need the amounts of guns to increase on campuses, but student Nicolette Barazza says she's more concerned for her mom, who's a teacher.
My mom's been a high school teacher for 23 years, and all of my family have been teachers. I barely trust them enough to know how to work a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm not sure I trust them enough with guns.
Barazza says teachers don't get enough funding for their classrooms, so where is the money for handguns coming from? Senator Patrick Toomey says he's in favor of teachers bearing arms, but wouldn't impose it on schools.
There are school districts where there are a number of teachers who are extensively trained, they are ex-military, they would be comfortable and it would be suitable.
Since the recent high school shooting in Florida, Congress has been feeling the pressure to do something about guns. Meanwhile, President Trump suggests arming teachers. His daughter Ivanka says,
having a teacher who is armed, who cares deeply about her students or his students, and who is capable and qualified to bear arms is not a bad idea.
Although no serious incidents involving teachers firing guns in schools have been reported, it's still an ongoing discussion. I'm Shanice Archer for District Wire News.
Teachers in West Virginia are protesting a strike for low wages. More than 1,000 teachers marched at the state capitol in Charleston to demand better pay and benefits. The National Education Association says West Virginia teachers are the 48th lowest paid in the country. Governor Jim Justice signed a bill that would give teachers a 2% raise, followed by a one-year raise in the following year.
Social workers, government employees, teachers, and supporters stood in solidarity this weekend to stand up for the rights of working-class people. A Supreme Court hearing taking place today could change the way unions are supported and funded. District Wire News' Amanda Washington has more on this story.
Brothers and sisters, are you ready to tell some of these people that we are the union?
Hundreds of workers and union supporters gathered in D.C.'s Freedom Plaza this past Saturday to rally together in support of unions for working class people. Demonstrators participated in songs and chants
Who has the power?
to stand in solidarity for the cause. A nationwide effort called the Working People's Day of Action brought many concerned workers together before Monday's Supreme Court case that could put a lot of union funds and membership in jeopardy. D.C. Public Schools teacher Lauren Fuchs says although the Supreme Court may not rule in their favor, it's all about working people supporting one another.
I hope this is the start of a lot more organizing by a lot more unions and coming together more often to show that each other that we are here for each other and we're going to fight through this.
The case being argued today deals with a government worker challenging state law that he must pay agency fees to a labor union although he chooses not to be a member of it. Union members like Pierce Weaver says that all types of unions are coming together to show that having a union is still needed.
All unions are here together showing that we want to support having a union, having benefits, having the ability to have someone speak for us and represent us.
If the law passes, unions in 22 states could be affected, which some say is taking away their rights as citizens.
They believe they can get away with rigging the economy in our democracy. This is a democracy where people have a right to form and join a union.
Other cities involved in the rally included Philadelphia, Minneapolis, and San Diego. For District Wire News, I'm Amanda Washington.
A growing number of car companies are cutting ties with the NRA. Car rental companies, including Enterprise and Hertz, announced that they are canceling their discount programs for members of the NRA. There are no statements as to the reasons for the move. However, they all come in the wake of the Parkland school shooting and outrage that followed.
Johns Hopkins University becomes the latest educational institution to show support for gun control rallies happening across the nation. The Parkland, Florida mass shooting this February at a high school in Parkland, Florida has sparked calls for walkouts in high schools across the country, but students are worried about how this will affect their academic standing. A tweet on February 23rd states that Johns Hopkins Admissions Office supports students who engage in peaceful civic engagement. The tweet was meant to reassure students that getting penalized for participating in gun control demonstrations won't jeopardize their chances of enrollment. Dozens of universities and colleges have reassured high school students participating in gun control protests recently, including Brown University, Boston University, and the University of Puget Sound in Washington State.
New charges have been filed against Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort and aide Rick Gates. The charges were put under seal by the court. The pair are accused with money laundering and failing to register as foreign agents for their work related to Ukraine. Manafort and Gates pleaded not guilty. Special counsel Robert Mueller's team of prosecutors asked for a trial date to begin on May 14th. Bail has been set for Manafort at $10 million and Gates at $5 million. Both will have nightly curfews and wear GPS monitors.
The House Intelligence Committee published a redacted version of the Democrats' memo that aims to counter the credibility of multiple links to the Russia investigation, 2016 meddling of the presidential election. This comes 2 weeks after President Trump blocked a full release of a classified Democratic memo. The memo defends the Justice Department and FBI surveillance of former campaign advisor Carter Page. Earlier this month, President Trump released a controversial Nunes memo accusing the FBI of abusing their surveillance tools.
Today marks the 25th anniversary of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. The explosion of the Twin Towers killed half a dozen people and injured hundreds more. Survivors and others gathered on the 9/11 Memorial Plaza for a solemn tribute to the victims of the first terror attack on the World Trade Center. The ceremony included a reading of victims' names and a moment of silence at 12:18 p.m. when the bomb exploded.
The Supreme Court has set a date to hear travel ban arguments. The justices will hear oral arguments concerning the legality of the latest version of President Trump's travel ban at the end of April. The ruling will determine the fate of the Trump administration's attempt to restrict entry of people from Muslim-majority countries.
Coming up on District Wire News, the D.C. Mayor's Office is creating space for entrepreneurs and small business owners.
And the Supreme Court declines a White House request for a quick ruling to end protections for undocumented immigrants in the U.S. We'll have more when we return.